Hi, and welcome to Distinct Authors Talking Publishing. I'm Patricia Bates, a historical romance author. I also write under Elise Wells in the genres of paranormal romance, contemporary romance, suspense romance, and LGBTQ romances as well. Today I thought I would take a little time to talk to you about your first draft. As an author, having a first draft is vital to really getting down the skeleton of your story. You want to use your first draft as a means of putting the ideas down. And I've seen this at the beginning because they've got a couple chapters in and they want to go back and they want to redo and they want to revise and do some edits and kind of edit as you go. And you really, with the first draft, should never do this. Take the opportunity to write bad if your first draft, because that's going to be very important when it comes time to really explore as you get further into it and really delve into the concepts that you are going to be putting together. So with your first draft, of course, it is just simply that. It is just basically throwing the information at the page, getting it down, not worrying about spelling mistakes or grammar or any of those things. You want to just focus, again, on getting the basic premise down onto the paper. You don't worry about word counts or anything along those lines because those are things that can be fine-tuned at a later date. And when you start doing your revisions and start doing your edits, you're going to find that your word count is adjusted and it does shift. It's very fluid once you start doing your revisions and edits because, you're tightening things up, you're taking things out. Use those filler words, use the adjectives and the adverbs, and do whatever you need to do just to get that basic points down onto the page so that you do have something to work with. Because like they say, you cannot edit a blank page. Very true. So you want to just engage yourself in that sense. One of the things that I have really found that has helped me with first draft writing is, if it's possible, turning my screen off, minimizing the page that I'm working on. Whether it's, if I'm working on my laptop and I'm working on a Word document, I'll just minimize it and I'll open like a web browser and, or something along those lines. It's very generic, something that I don't really need to pay attention to, that I can write with. And a lot of times that does really help me to get the words from my mind onto the computer and onto the page. This doesn't work for everyone, so it's really a matter of fine-tuning and figuring out how you want to do it. But again, it's really vital that you do get the words down and onto that page and not be constrained by either your own urge to edit as you go or by what you perceive as what, the publisher or whatever means that you're looking at once it's done is. Self-publishing, traditional publishing, it doesn't matter which avenue that you go. It's simply a matter of making sure that you're doing the idea notations before you can really jump into those fine tunes. And then once you've done your first draft, then it becomes a matter of, your revisions, your edits. One of the biggest mistakes that I've experienced, and I've seen this with some of the other authors as well, is when you are really focusing on getting that first draft down, you've gone back and re-edited it, and all of a sudden, it's not the story that you thought it was going to be because you spent so much time working on the beginning of it by editing, going back, starting over again, that you've really lost some of the key points, so to speak, of what you wanted to get across. So whatever it takes and it's a habit you do have to tend and to really work at, to minimize what you are working on, what you're looking at when you're writing. You want to just get that idea down. And then once you've got your first draft down, that is when the harder stuff comes into play. And one of the things that I have really kind of found over the last, few years of my experience with this is to backbench it, put it in to a save spot, whether it's your Google Drive, your hard drive, wherever, just kind of backbench it for, a month or so that your brain doesn't really recognize the story when you go back to it. And then you can start your revisions and your edits and those sorts of things, and polishing and really dressing that story up and making it into a publishable piece. Sorry. So that's something to really be aware of, and really kind of try to understand that it's not a negative if you can't get everything perfect on your first shot out the gate, because you're not supposed to. Your first draft is supposed to look horrible. It is supposed to be rambling, and maybe there's problems with it. Those are all normal, acceptable things that you really need to overlook when you're writing your first draft. And then once you get into your edits, then you can kind of nitpick and be a little bit more engaged with the content. But it's very, very important to really just kind of relax, give yourself a break, give yourself a chance just to get the ideas down, and then go back to it. That's going to be your biggest benefit in the whole process, is really just understanding your first draft is supposed to be your first draft. It's not a polished manuscript. It's just the ideas onto the page. Now, like I said, when you start your revisions and your edits, that's a whole different ball game, and that can take just as long to do as to write it. NaNoWriMo is a prime example of first drafts, because you have 30 days to write 50,000 words, and a lot of authors have done that. I've done it myself. I've won a couple of times. And I have to say, the best part of that is just knowing that, okay, this is how many days I'm writing, this is how many words I got to get down on this day, and understanding that there is no time to go back and edit. There's no time to go back and check and double check and make sure. And if there's spelling mistakes or what have you, that's okay. It's painful to begin with, because you really are changing how you think when you're writing, but it's very important that you do so, because you want to make sure that you're reaching the potential that you can reach. And I think a lot of authors maybe struggle with that aspect of what is out there, and that ability. So really kind of keeping that in mind. So my top 3 tips for writing your first draft is, first tip, do not expect it to be perfect. Give yourself a break, relax. If it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. That's what revisions and edits are for. 2, don't micromanage what you're doing when you're doing it. If you need to cover your screen up, if you need to minimize the document that you're working on or the web browser page that you're working on, whatever it is that you need to do to really just focus on getting the premise out and onto the page, is incredibly important. And 3, reward yourself. One of the hardest parts of this is, because you're retraining your brain to think a different way, is to set realistic goals and then reward yourself. So for example, if your goal is to write 1,000 words on your current first draft, and you get that 1,000 words done, reward yourself, whether it's a piece of chocolate or a glass of wine, or just a 15-minute YouTube video on funny cats. Really take that time to step back and reward yourself. It really does help you to understand how to let go of that preconception that you need to be perfect right out of the gate. Now, I do have a little document handout that I am putting together that will be going with this video, and I will have a link to it down below in the description box. And it really is just a one-page kind of outline of how I do it when I'm working on a first draft, how I set it up so that I can work on it, focus on it, and not have to worry about it in the long run. And I really find that it's very helpful to me, and I'm hoping it will be helpful to you. Thank you so very much for taking the time out to join me today for this. Found some of it helpful, and that were some tips that you could take with you. And I look forward to seeing you again. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.